I've been part of Sewing Café Lancaster for about 6 years now, and it has kind of really helped me extend my skills and take great pleasure in working with kindred spirits and people who also are passionate about trying to make textiles that are linked to our lives as sustainable as possible. So one of the main areas that I'm interested in, along with 4 or 5 other people in the team, is natural dyeing and how we can use plant pigments to really recycle or upcycle our clothes. It's a great technique for covering over stains or being able to completely put a fresh look on a new item of clothing. For example, what I'm wearing today is old bedsheets, which I've dyed in coreopsis, but myself and the rest of the team grew up at our dye beds at Claymore Hill Community Growing Space. So this was from coreopsis flowers, but I've also dipped it in iron to give this a bit of a dull look. Another item of clothing.
Oh, just before you move on from your dress, how about the piece at the top?
Right. So this is some eco-printing that we've done from coreopsis flowers as well. I think original inspiration for eco-printing came from the absolutely marvellous India Flint from Australia, who have just been so inspired by and so impressed with her work, and especially how India has made the pieces of dye that she's done, and she's made some absolutely amazing outfits. So I think, thank you, India, you've given us some fantastic inspiration.
Yes, she inspired me too, actually, and I'm finding on my travels that a lot of people influence India's work, so thank you, India.
Yeah, I think her technique of just being so close to the environment that she lives in and wherever she travels, it is just really inspirational. So one piece of work that I've just finished is this little jumper, and this was really a kind of something that came out of lockdown, because we spent a lot of time on the Lancaster Canal. So instead of going further afield, we were spending leisure time very locally, and this piece is made from 4 different shades of colours. So we've got bramble, elderberry, slowberry, and also got a little bit of local rhubarb in there as well. But for me, this is it kind of represents some very, very lovely and special times on the canal, and for me now to take this forward in my life and keep me snug through the winters is going to be a lovely thing.
And you've obviously joined them quite carefully, the pieces, and can you tell us about the wool as well? Looks homespun.
So this is our most local commercially produced yarn that we can buy in Lancaster. So the wool is called Lynn. It's Kerry Hill and Blueface Leicester, and it comes from a farm about 2 miles out of Lancaster, and it's a project of Kate from Northern Yarns. She sourced the yarn, got it spun, and she sells that in her shop. So for me, it's really wonderful to be able to use very, very local pigments, local dyes on yarn that is the closest possible yarn we could have, other than spin and ourselves.
It reminds me a little of tree growth rings, doesn't it? Can you tell us a little bit how you would have done, dyed each piece as you went, and each piece of wool,
it was
and
dyed
then joined?
in 4 different batches, and then some of the colours I've used a little bit of increasing alkaline to get to different shades. So in here I think we've got 3 different shades from 1 lot of elderberries, but then just playing around with the alkaline. But I've also tried to minimise any waste of yarn by not having any ends, so I've used the split welding technique of being able to join 2 pieces of yarn, so you can just get a continuous flow from one colour to the next, because any way to save precious yarn is a good thing.
And can you tell us a little about your history with your wardrobe?
Well, in the past I have been an absolute prolific shopper. I'd say I really enjoy shopping, I really enjoy charity shopping, but I'm actually really good at it, but too good at it. So any way for me to really try and slow the whole process down has got to be a really good thing. And for me now, it's about the pleasure of the making far outweighs the idea of going shopping, and the fact that you can work on something for absolutely ages, perhaps rip it back loads if it's not quite going well. It's all about sort of, the materials and precious, so your outcome is really, really important. But it may be that you continue to work on something over quite a period of time. This dress here, I might end up putting sleeves on it in the winter, maybe, we'll see. Could end up doing some painting into it, who knows. It's just about a real ongoing journey. Nothing's really ever finished.
And it's about that connection that you've got to your clothes then too, haven't you, and the story that it tells?
I think it's so much more meaningful because when you're wearing something, you get so many pleasurable memories and flashbacks to the time. For example, in the jumper, sort of actually waiting and sort of seeing the minute changes in the seasons, waiting for the best time to pick the fruit, pick the berries, over a period of time, so you're not taking too many at one time, and it's just about the actual pleasure of picking the fruit, the pleasure of dyeing it. It's sort of so strong in my mind that I'll never lose those memories, and those memories really, really enhance the outfit for me.
And where did you learn the original techniques? This is something that was in your growing up?
I did do a sort of textile design course back in the 1980s, and although we did do some natural dyeing on that, it was mainly chemical dyeing. But I think if you learn the sort of expertise in chemical dyeing, there is actually quite a lot of information that transfers between the two. Like, for example, about getting the right amount of dye material to whatever you're dyeing, the right amount of liquid, the right amount of time. And if you know those principles, then you should be able to dye really efficiently and not waste resources.
And with your own wardrobe then, is your energy in all of your clothes, would you say?
I'd say it is, because if it's not sort of something that I've made from some waste fabric, then it's an item that I've, say, made a dress out of, a scarf or something, and everything. It has its story about where you found it, or whether or not you might find it in a trunk at home. You start looking at it and then creating something new, and all of that energy goes with the garment.
And could you summarise what your motivation is for dressing in this way?
I think it's just to sort of see how can we use our local resources and make them as very local as possible, so that you actually know every stage of the process and that it's really transparent. And I think it's really sort of like using these resources really, really wisely, and only taking exactly what you need. You're not taking too much. And I think the level of thought that goes into everything that you make really, really helps it be successful. And also never be scared of unpicking something, taking some to bits. If you get part of the way through and you've got that nagging feeling, no, this isn't working out, well, just sort it out, because there's absolutely no point in producing something that you're never going to wear. So it's about sort of careful crafting over a long period.
And I guess some people don't have time to do that in a way, and that could be a limitation, do you think?
Well, it could be, but also I think you can sort of start a project and it may take 2 years. Like example, this is 2 years in the making. It's something I've done other things while I've been working on this, but I think it's having a clear vision of what you want at the end of it, and then breaking a project down to different components. You can do the dyeing bit at that time, then you can completely leave it for a while, and then you can start off on some knitting or sewing, and it's just about sort of breaking the task down into little manageable chunks, and then you can do something pretty amazing. It may take absolutely ages, but that's fine. It will be very, very satisfying use of your time.
So obviously you're getting a lot of well-being benefits from this and social connection as well.
Yeah, because our dyeing sort of project is very much a group activity where sort of we're really lucky in our team to have people who are really interested in dyeing, but also in growing plants, and also sort of expanding the different uses. So hence we've got into making inks from plants, making paints from plants, eco printing, hapazome. So there's, when you're working with a team of people who are, you know, really interested in sort of, you know, using getting as much out of plants as possible, the joint enthusiasm is superb.
And you've got a background as a teacher, haven't you?
Yeah.
Can you talk about perhaps how your career was and how that's led you to be where you are now?
Well, I think I opted to work in special education, and I think for me that was an area of work where it really sort of like you had to be as creative as possible because there was no solutions out there. You had to think of individual solutions to have the best outcomes for young people, and I think it was just that sort of creativity and solution focused approach in my teaching career I found was just great preparation to then come and work in a sort of social group working on sustainability in textiles, because again there's so many problems within the textile industry, but the more creative brains that can work together, we're going to make better progress.
And I mean, it seems almost as if the stimulation that you're getting from the group and the problem solving would have to be helpful for your mental health. Not that I'm suggesting you have any problems, you know what I mean? But
it's definitely helpful for just mental health and just sheer sort of enjoyment of life, because the stimulation and the ideas that fly around the group, there's always something new to think of. People might ask you for advice, and I've got people that I can go and ask advice from. So there's just like a really sort of like willing group of people who all, you know, want each other to be successful, and also for us to expand our skills and get the most out of life that we can.
And also utilising the resources as well, with your using colour to refresh garments that are a bit stained or, you know, perhaps on the way to landfill.
Yeah, so I mean for us that's a really important aspect of the work, and Victoria's been spending quite a lot of time studying around sort of and finding out exactly the situation of waste management in Lancaster, and we've been offered various opportunities to actually use various materials like stuff that's left over from students when they leave university. We've been kind of gleaning there, and then that's a great use of materials that then we can use in our different education sessions and workshops and stuff. And for us it's really important to use materials really well, and also something like the prospect of a ripped sheet. You know, there's always going to be a really good part of that fabric that's perfectly usable, and it's very exciting to think of the different options and the different outcomes, and especially when you've got a group of people who've got so many ideas. We know it has to, we've got to sort of start thinking of creative ways to use our waste and to try and come up with some really beautiful outcomes is a very satisfying thing.